everyone. Welcome to the Burn After Watching podcast for August 2nd, 2016. This is episode number 39, and I'm your host, Jody.
I'm your host, Reed.
I am your host, Mark.
All right, and so, yeah, we're here.
Oh, yeah, we're here.
And this is our last show from this location.
Thompson Bowling Arena.
Yeah, because we are moving
to
a new
an apartment.
Undisclosed location.
Yep.
Big shout out to Thompson Bowling for letting us do this for so long.
Yeah, 39 episodes, it's a real feat. But we're excited about the move.
They're real troopers, because we know them when we see them, because we're troopers, right?
So true. All right, so on today's show, we're going to be reviewing Captain Fantastic, new film by Matt Ross. I believe it's his first film. This guy, I guess, is known for his work on the HBO TV series Silicon Valley. So that's the only bit of his background I know about. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
You guys got anything you want to throw out there before we get into this review? Anything that needs to be...
We got picks, right?
Yeah, we'll have picks
Some
later.
picks later on.
Later.
We'll have some picks.
Okay.
We'll have some picks.
And on that note, let's hear a quick clip from Captain Fantastic.
The training is over today. Can we take Steve somewhere for class later?
Maybe.
Why does Mommy have to be gone so long?
She hasn't been gone very long.
Actually, it's been 3 months, 2 weeks, 6 days, and 11 hours.
Mom is very ill.
Don't talk to us like we're your inferiors.
Bo is right. Mom needs to be in the hospital right now.
But you said hospitals are only a great place to go
If you're a healthy person and you want to die.
You said Americans are undereducated and overmedicated.
You said that AMA are avaricious whores only tooling to spread their fat legs for Big Pharma.
All of those things are true, but Mom does not have enough of the neurotransmitter serotonin to conduct electrical signals in her brain.
Exactly when is Mom coming back?
That's what I'm gonna go find out. Be good, monkey butts.
See you later, Dad. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Captain Fantastic, rated R. In the forests of the Pacific Northwest, a father devoted to raising his 6 kids with a rigorous physical and intellectual education is forced to leave his paradise and enter the world, challenges his idea of what it means to be a parent. Written and directed, as Jody said, by Matt Ross, starring Viggo Mortensen. I'm going to skip over all the kids. Catherine Hahn, Steve Zahn, and Frank Langella.
Who cares about kids anyways?
Langella?
Just say it over and over again and you'll eventually get it.
One of those is right.
I was hoping you would.
No, I'm going to stop there. What do you guys think of Captain Fantastic?
Captain Fantastic, I'm not too crazy about it. I think it started off a little rough for me in that a lot of the opening and first kind of third of the movie felt very artificial or very staged, and it's directed well and written well, just something about it felt empty for me. Something maybe not necessarily in the performances or in a lot of the choices, but just something feels empty. It all feels written and it feels like it's there for the movie. I was very aware of the film that's taking place and not the story that's unfolding. And that really kind of hurt my view on a lot of the rest of the movie because some parts towards the end I think are handled fairly well. I have problems with a lot of stuff towards the end. The movie takes like 45 minutes to end, or like it ends just a bunch of times and you never know when. I almost stood up like 12 times to get out of the theater. But I think a lot of those beats would have worked for me better towards the end if the beginning had opened stronger for me and I'd actually been invested emotionally in the characters and then what was going on. Other than that, I mean, I'm not negative really.
Whoa,
there's nothing.
You're actually pretty harsh on this movie. I thought Jody was going to be the most negative, but you're giving him a run for his money, I think. Reed.
Well, okay, let me just keep going.
Okay.
For 1 second. I'm not super negative on this movie. The likable parts I want to like. The movie's fairly likable and I want to like it more than I do, but I'm just not able to because a lot of it feels really artificial for a lot of the movie, and there's moments that remind me of films I really don't like I'll just bring up Zach Braff's Wish I Was Here, a movie that I really
So strange. I thought about Wish I Was Here throughout this entire movie.
really.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's moments where they conceived this parts of the plot solely for the visual element of it to make it look cool. Like their clothes are not functioning in any way. They're just there for the visual element.
What?
I don't know. It
I
just
thought
seems
they-
very artificial to me. That's what I have.
Calls attention. Say something like the costumes certainly do call attention to themselves, but I didn't think they were just being weird. I thought it was a way for the children to kind of characterize. I mean, it's like the children dress themselves in this movie with things that they like, and like one of the kids wears a gas mask for no reason, and I didn't think it was overplayed. And it only happens like in one scene, basically.
See,
it's like part of his formal dress, which was kind of funny. Well, not really funny. It was just, well, it was strange.
It's mostly towards the end where they walk into the funeral, and that's in the trailer, so not even a spoiler.
Yeah.
And they're decked out in these like they're just ridiculous clothes, and I get that their little family society
Yeah.
is on its own, and they don't embrace the resources that a lot of the world embraces, and I appreciate that part of the movie, but at the same time, like, the clothes that they have are still strange for them to have, I think.
Okay. Well,
And
Jody-
it feels very like it's just planned for the visual element of the movie.
See, I never really had a problem with any kind of visual things. If anything, I found things they're wearing and, the way they learn and the, just the setup of their home, at the beginning of this movie. I found all that actually pretty interesting, and kind of practical in the way you would imagine a family living out there on their own. A lot of my biggest problems are what you said, Reed. The key word there is artificial, and just I agree with you that I think all the performances are great, and I think they elevate this movie to be a lot better than it is. And I think there's some good writing going on here, but my main issue is the dialogue, the conversations they're having. Everything feels like it's all just dialogue to set up. Hey, these kids are strange. Hey,
Just
these kids are
regurgitating
smart.
them.
Hey, I don't know. It plays really strange to me, and it never comes off as something actual people would say. And I know this is supposed to be a family and children that are very not set in reality anyway, because have never been around people. They've only been around each other, and everything they know about the world is from books, and they read a lot, and they're very well educated in that way. But it's still, even with that in mind, comes off as, I don't know, strange dialogue, artificial, just feels very overwritten.
Huh.
There's one moment in particular towards...
And that's not necessarily even consistent in itself as either. I think there's also some really great moments, and you talked about not being able to get invested emotionally, and I think the performances are so good in this movie, despite a lot of these scenes where I have issues and don't like. These kids are so good, and Viggo Mortensen is so good. It's hard to not get at least a little emotional during some of these intimate moments that are working very well. And one I have in mind where I think the dialogue is actually pretty good is, you brought it up earlier, one of the daughters is reading Lolita, which is a very difficult book to deal with, and he kind of walks through her in a conversation to get her to explain or evaluate what she's reading, and she uses the word interesting and he goes, that's a non-word, don't use that word. Tell me what you really think about it. And I actually love that scene. I think that was one of the better scenes of the movie. It's just, there's some other scenes where, I don't know, it plays off a little more strange, and the one I'm thinking of is Bo, who I think is the best performer of the children. He's the oldest son. I liked him a lot. He has a scene with his father when they leave their home and they go and visit this, I guess they go to a post office or something that down off the mountain they live on, and they're arguing over Russian like politics of 1920s, and he's identifying himself
Right.
as one, and he's arguing, I'm not what is it he says, a Tarvishite or a Turkishite? I don't know the word. Well, I'm just an idiot.
He just rattles off like 3 or 4 different ideologies and how he isn't any of them or is a mix of all of them, which makes him this.
The
or
way
something
they're
like
riffing
that.
back and forth, it just plays really like, okay, we get it.
Right.
They read a lot of very
that's kinda-
left wing stuff here.
Yeah,
but
one of the things that I feel like a lot of the comedy was like easy. I feel we might be able to get more into that later, but the parts that are like intended for comedy, I felt like were pretty easy.
it was about half and
jokes.
half for me. I think there's some moments of, good, sincere comedy, and I think there's some that play a little bit kind of more so in bad taste for me. We'll get to those in a little bit. I feel like we've
Yeah.
shut Mark out of this.
All right, bury us,
He's
Mark.
getting ready to bury us. He keeps
He's
saying,
going to bury us.
Okay, these guys were having conversations before we started recording about movies they liked. I'm going to use that against them.
All right.
I very much liked Captain Fantastic. And I'll jump in. I think you both brought up a point about how it's overwritten, or it's really overplaying this idea that the kids are well educated and things like that. I would say that a lot of scenes play out that way, or there is a lot of content in this movie where you're just seeing how Viggo Mortensen's character is rearing his children, and that's a topic I could not be less interested in. I hate kids, and I hate raising kids, and I refuse to be involved. But I think that what was coming through for me in these scenes is not necessarily how smart they are. Of course, that's a point being made. But what I kind of got was a bigger picture of what he was achieving, what this character was achieving in this world. And it isn't 100% realistic, I wouldn't argue. And I don't think the movie's trying to portray that. But something I got out of these scenes wasn't so much the surface that, they know a lot of things, or they read a lot of books, or they're smarter than children who attend public school. What I got out of it was that he's removed them from this society for all these different reasons, and did this with his wife, and they're raising these kids with this, I guess, very goal-oriented, this vision, right, for these children and what they were supposed to become. And it's almost like I got the sense that they're just removed from the world as we know it, and all the distractions, right, and all these pitfalls that we fall into as far as developing and learning or not learning and being distracted by things. And it's almost like the children just being very genuine and allowed to be themselves, for lack of a better term here. Like nothing could get in the way of them just surpassing what would normally be expected of these children. It's almost like the sky's the limit when you remove like these boundaries that we're all kind of saddled with just by living in modern society, I guess. So it wasn't so shallow for me because this weird element was coming through, and I can't really describe why now that you guys come at it.
Well,
not really picking it up. I don't know if that's something I brought to it. Or
I
what.
did get a lot of that coming out of it too. I think if anything, I guess it's hit so heavy that it just feels overplayed to me to the extent that they're pounding that in. I guess one of my issues with the movie is like this idea of how, I guess, singular the perspective feels for the entire first half of this movie, and it's very non-judging in the way he's raising these children and stuff. And that was one of my biggest parts of the movie, is I was like, are they going anywhere with this, like, to show the the other side of this, how this could also be viewed. And that's kind of what the grandfather character is here for, and they actually do address that a little bit later in the movie, but then they even backtrack on that a little bit.
Well, I guess we should say that it's a synopsis I read. It wasn't this one that we read for the show. There's a synopsis somewhere else that kind of sets up that there's a family crisis that somehow thrusts these forest people, living in the wilderness, thrusts them more into normal society and conflicts with family members who thought that whole thing is a mistake. Yes. And they're really resentful that...
And that's all in the trailer, so we could say what that thing is. Okay. Let's go ahead and refrain from doing it if we can avoid.
But yeah, there's certainly a lot of conflict there, and it does represent kind of two sides of the argument, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, one of the things you brought up, Jody, when I asked you kind of your initial thoughts, was that the movie is one-sided. And do you really feel that way?
For a time. I think it by the end, it does address the other side of it. It's just, I don't know, it's so non-critical of, this very extreme way of parenting that is, in a lot of ways putting these kids in danger, in harm's way. Well, and, the whole point of this, the father says, is to create this environment where they don't have these constraints of the normal world, and they're not inhibited from their growing and learning and things because of the way society is now. And I think all that's fair, but he controls their lives just as much as if they were living in society. He's almost like a dictator in that way, because like they're not being prepared for the real world in any way. And again, these are things being addressed in the movie, so it's almost not even fair criticism after it.
Well, I think
gets back to
it certainly is exaggerated in this film.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean they're rock climbing on a cliff face, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the criticisms you would have could be about any type of parenting, and nothing is flawless, I don't think.
Yeah.
And
well, and I think the movie, one of the things I really do like that it seems like it's trying to say is how much, no matter, how extreme your style of parenting is, how much of an influence really are you going to finally, by the end, have on your children? And I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, if you had flipped the script on this and made this a super religious, overly Christian, hide them from the world kind of parenting movie, it would have been a much less...
you would have the witch.
Positively looked at.
Good point, Reed.
That's fair. That's a very interesting comparison I never would have came up with.
I actually did think about that once or twice during the film.
That's interesting.
Mark, I can buy into your reading. I think that's all there, and that's the most important component of the movie, and it does work. I think a lot of the rest of the movie just doesn't it doesn't form to make anything original other than that first storyline. A lot of the time I was watching it and something would happen and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what should happen now. Like towards the beginning, this is the example I'll use because it's the least spoilery. Towards the beginning, they're sitting by their house in the forest basically, and Viggo Mortensen pulls out a guitar, and then all the other kids run and get their instruments and they play a song, and it sounds great, and it's a good scene. But I was watching and I was like, yeah, of course that's what's happening.
Well, see, okay.
And so, I did that over and over throughout this movie.
It's interesting you say that because in
You're
a
so
moment...
jaded and cynical.
That's one of my fears about my opinion about this movie is that I've seen too many movies that are
like
similar to this. Yeah.
In that moment, that was one of the moments where I was like, okay, this is exactly where I would have pictured this going at this time.
Yeah.
But I also think the movie subverts at times. I think there's, a little unorthodox in some ways that it's telling this story and doesn't necessarily hit all the beats and go in all the directions you would think it does. So I think it changes it up a little bit throughout it, but that is probably the most generic scene of the movie, or very well, but it's not necessarily a generic scene. It's well done, like you said, but it's like, yeah, this is exactly what should be happening right now.
And I don't know if that's just me coming in thinking like, hey, Little Miss Sunshine, thinking about certain movies coming into this and comparing them directly to that. But even like later in the movie, this probably isn't a spoiler. I won't get too specific, but Viggo Mortensen puts one of his children in danger, kind of like he's done throughout the movie, but this time a little more serious. And there's nothing really building. There's not tension building, but the whole time I'm like, yeah, this is what's going to happen.
I'm like, she's going to get hurt. Actually a lot of tension.
I'm like, she's going to get hurt right now.
No, see,
she's going to get hurt, and then it happens.
I think you know where it's going in that moment, but I think like it's almost like a little bit in the back of his head. He knows where it's going. And I think that is where the tension comes in that scene.
Okay.
And that's why I thought the last half hour of this movie was actually doing some of the more interesting stuff of the entire movie, because it's making him doubt everything a little bit. Like, hey, maybe because obviously you can get this from the trailer. There's almost everyone else in his family, and a lot of the people in the normal world are doubting his parenting style and think this guy is a lunatic. And it's towards the end of this movie where he starts to even maybe think like, maybe this is wrong, maybe this is not what I should be doing, maybe I am putting these children in danger. And I thought that was some interesting parts. And again, when you have a terrific actor like Viggo Mortensen, he can really make those moments shine and really make you believe it, and he did a really good job at that. And
the problem is immediately after that, though, right?
Yeah, that was my biggest issue. But again, by the end, it does something a little bit better with that.
I mean, it's basically undercutting itself as soon as he's doubting himself. He doubts himself so that he can shave his beard. Then all of a sudden he's confident in his plan again.
It seems like he does for a moment, but I think it goes back on that again, and there is change that has happened, I think, by the end of the movie. And
I would agree, and that's not an easy thing to do. We see so many movies where it seems like nothing mattered, nobody learns anything, or
you end up right back where you started.
Or in movies where people are learning things, it's just way too heavy-handed, where you're like, oh, here's the lesson you're supposed to learn. Whereas I don't think anything was so clear-cut.
I think this was kind of I think it's a subtle change, and I think it wasn't until like about 10 minutes after walking out of the movie when I was sitting here thinking like, He didn't learn a darn thing. It was about 10 minutes later. I was like, you know what? Okay, something that's changed here.
Yeah.
The more I thought about, especially that last shot. And but my biggest issue with this entire movie is the way they villainize. I feel like this should have been one of those movies where no one's seriously made into a villain in the movie. And I think Frank Langella's character's done a disservice because he is made such a villain when really, if you think about like one of the better scenes he has in the movie where he's being very sincere, he cares about these children and he does truly feel like the dad is putting them in danger. And it seems like he seems like one of the more believable, realistic characters in the movie. And I guess that's just the movie wanting to, like, hey, you can't necessarily do a better job, is what I guess they're trying to say. I don't know. But it just, I don't know. It played like a little bit of a disservice to that character to play him as such a villain, because I felt like it should have been played a little bit more like Steve Zahn and Catherine Hahn's characters. A little bit more like,
that's fair.
Hey, we do it differently, but we can also do it our own way.
I'm glad you brought them up. That there's a dinner scene where Viggo Mortensen's family is having dinner, I guess, with his wife's sister and her husband and their two kids, and that is a spectacular scene. And
that's one of my favorite scenes. Yeah.
And Catherine Hahn and Steve Zahn. I've not seen Steve Zahn really in a movie in 10-15 years or something, and he's great in this. So they're both great, and the complexity and how they. 1 second you're on their side or you're completely sympathizing with them, and the next second you disagree with them. Like, you know, it just goes back and forth so many times.
My only issue with that scene is, as much as I love the way they handle the parents in that situation, the way they handle their two children, I thought was too one-dimensional.
You think so?
But yeah, I do, because it's like it's...
Have you met 13-year-olds? No, I'm joking.
Okay, so you have these very dynamic and interesting children being raised by Viggo Mortensen,
right,
who have their flaws, obviously being raised in such a, you know, sort of a utopian society. And then you have these two, you know, obviously very much like video games. These kids go to a normal high school and middle school. And there's a scene where Viggo Mortensen pretty much just humiliates these two kids or makes them look like idiots. And I didn't like that scene.
Very competitive. Yeah.
It was just very much like
it,
your kids are idiots. And I think there could have been a better way to address how the children are different, but it just... I
don't think that the film is holding up those two examples sincerely. I think it's very much a character moment for Viggo Mortensen to... It is not a... it doesn't portray that character in a very good light in that scene. Yeah, it is very... what's the word? Arrogant. There's a lot of things wrong with his character.
I don't care that he's arrogant in that scene. I kind of like that because it's very believable. He's like, my kids are just as good as yours.
Yes.
It's more so...
And of course he is being challenged, so of course he's on the defensive.
Yeah, exactly. It's more so to me how unredeemable it makes those two kids. As if...
Yeah.
But again, you know, maybe it makes more sense since they're not our characters in this story anyway. We're following this other family and stuff. And I think... I don't know. It's just more of a small little thing that
this is where I get jaded.
Definitely
and cynical.
Fell in bad taste to me.
If you put two teenagers like that under pressure, you're going to be seriously disappointed in their response.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So
I'm not. I'm right between you guys. I did not enjoy that scene. I don't think anyone should enjoy that scene, but that doesn't mean it's a bad scene.
Oh, I enjoyed how uncomfortable it was. Yeah, it's certainly not a fun. Yeah, enjoyable scene. But
at the same time, it did feel like humiliation at points to those kids. Like, I don't know. It felt very almost exploitative.
It's kind of believable in the way they do it. I've seen
there's a little bit
that exact same thing play out, but it's just...
There's a little bit of vindication there because during the dinner scene the night before, they are very much looking down on the other kids for not having the same experience they are, right? I mean, so not that they deserve
They're
revenge.
Dumb jerks, basically.
Yeah.
They're dumb jerks, but that's not a comfortable way to paint kids that young, I think.
Well,
when you're trying to have really layered characters and all the other kids, to paint those characters that one-dimensional, I think is
I think maybe my biggest issue with that would have been is if these children had an interaction with some random kids at the grocery store or something they go to, had that interaction with them, that would have been... good. It's more the fact that'd be so shallow. Just like you guys are trying to say this is. I think that scene is very complex because Viggo Mortensen's comparing his children to pretty much his
other
sister's
members of his
children.
family.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, see,
And
that's what I didn't like about it. It's almost like it undercuts the whole idea of how the other style of parenting can be its own thing and be good too.
I think
And
that might be your first hint that not all is well under the Mortensen household. You know, it's there are.
I don't think the film's ever trying to say this is like the correct utopian
Right.
way to
no,
live.
no,
Not at all.
No.
Which is a credit to the film. I mean, it's pointing out the good and the bad. It's pointing out the fact that these kids are, I mean, brilliant, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But Viggo Mortensen's almost totalitarian.
I thought
in
that
the way
scene
he does
was
it.
the cherry on the top for that whole sequence in the film because there's so many complex emotions and you're switching sides. At least I was kind of internally and changing how I actually viewed and felt about the characters that I had been with as protagonists up to a point. And it's just was a great sequence and did so much to kind of just challenge me as a viewer, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I say it's not enjoyable and it wasn't fun, but it actually I like being uncomfortable and I like going on a weird emotional ride in films like this that do challenge the viewer.
So
I took it that way.
The movie's 2 hours long. I would have been more okay with them adding in about 5 minutes to give those kids a scene that actually gave them maybe some sort of
Redeeming
complexity.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. But
Wow.
again, you've almost swayed me closer to your side on this one, Mark, because on one hand, I don't know, it really plays off badly to me in the movie. I think the scene is good. It's more of just me really thinking into, like, was this fair to the characters or just fair at all, a fair portrayal? And it's more like how I feel about Frank Langella's character being villainized in this way that I don't necessarily think he needs to be in the movie. I think the way he is at odds with Viggo Mortensen is necessary, and I think that's played well. I don't think he just needs to be played off as such a villain, and that's why I kind of like where they leave him is in more of a redeeming moment.
I'll agree with you there. The grandfather character maybe is taken a step too far here and there, especially with where they eventually end up, you know, which is supposed to be, I guess, a more balanced view. And with the kids, maybe they do take it a step too far in their characterization. A different, very
it gets
specific.
its point across and is effective, and it does make you uncomfortable.
And they are very unpleasant characters. It's not. A lot about all that may be very uncomfortable, which is great, which I really enjoy. Actually,
I've pretty much almost swung to your side on this, Mark. I think it's
you're burying them. You're burying them, Mark. You're burying them.
I just gotta convince
it's
you.
Just,
really.
I don't think I don't think it's necessary that these kids be redeeming characters. They're teenagers. Teenagers can be awful. I think we're
getting a little off topic.
I think we're looking too far into this.
How about one of the things you might have addressed something I was going to bring up, and we are talking about the movie being. I'll concede and say it is unfair in some of its portrayals. And I was going to say, or it is one-sided and not too interested in showing you or explaining the other side fully or fleshing it out as dynamically as it does certain viewpoints. And I was going to ask, like, what about a movie you guys really like this year? Like, say, Everybody Wants Some. Would you say that fleshes out all viewpoints? Like, say even like
see that's where you've almost switched me on these kids, because we don't necessarily have to have these kids be dynamic characters, because every movie minor characters like that don't necessarily have to be. It's just the way that scene plays off. It almost feels like it's saying that about every kind of child that is growing up in a home like that. That's why it kind of rubs me the
I
wrong
think
way.
that Viggo Mortensen was trying to say that, or his character was
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It kind of makes sense that he has that viewpoint.
But that's also kind of the spot they put him in. They try to say your children are naturally or inherently inferior, and of course they're not great in every single way like he would have, I think, believed at that moment in the film or in that moment in his story. But he was put on the spot. And
the difference is
you guys have already addressed.
He's getting defensive about his children because his kids have literally been ridiculed by these two kids.
But he's ridiculing their kids, whereas and he does not like their kids, whereas both of them like all of his kids.
Yeah, they seem to be coming from a point of like concern, and I think that actually is something that resurfaces in the movie a lot. Is that people are concerned for the kids, and he's viewing it as a challenge of his own ability, right, and skill and things like that.
Which I think is a natural parental response in that way.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's kind of like it's a weird. It's actually a distortion. I think it's a very selfish. Like I'm not wrong. I'm right. But that's not what it should be about.
But then that's what he gets to towards the end.
Right.
That's kind of the journey.
That's why I think those moments with Viggo Mortensen towards the end kind of saved the movie. Because without that, there really isn't any kind of, the change wouldn't be evident without that. Him realizing, or his somewhat of an epiphany of the movie wouldn't even have happened. So I think all that's necessary, and I think that really helps the movie. Do you guys anything else you want to touch on?
Well, just to address everybody wants some, since you brought it up.
Since I brought it up.
Overall, I think it works better as a movie. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what helps it. And that's how you're able to get involved emotionally, is that it feels more real than this does a lot of the times. And I think a lot of this felt artificial from the beginning. And even the better parts as it went, I had a harder time buying into because of how I felt at the beginning. There's things I really like, and by themselves I would probably love. I really like the scene at the campground where the oldest son, Bo, meets a girl. I thought that was a really good scene. I
really liked the Bo character,
his character
in general.
yeah.
And I think he was giving a good performance. This is one of my other problems with the movie that kind of struggled, because this is, with Bo probably being the most just biggest part for a child in this movie. Or he's not even really a child, he's pretty much an adult. One of the other sons, who kind of is the one that is at odds with his father and blames his father for a lot of things, and isn't even really happy with the life he's given him. Didn't think that kid was great, and I don't know,
they don't really do much with him though.
Yeah,
like I mean, he's on screen a lot, but they don't give him a lot of I don't know, he doesn't have many dynamic moments, I guess. No, and
it played, that really came off kind of very written to me, like
his character, and I guess what they go through because of what he does is the one thing I would argue maybe that I would have just cut out of the movie, because of where it eventually goes in the end. It just seems like it's totally sidetracks itself for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then almost really
it also kind of, again, comes off as, it kind of plays really weird to me in the movie, because this kid is upset with his father, and I think for very valid reasons, and is for many valid reasons, is very uncomfortable and unhappy with his father. And then the way this resolves itself, it's pretty much him apologizing to his father, and not the other way around at all.
Yeah, I would argue that's probably one of the more shallow things in this movie, are kind of how it almost feels like it has to end a certain way, and for no other reason other than it wants to have this kind of ending that characters make these turns. And when it was kind of setting it up to be a complete disaster,
it just resolves.
It switches its direction pretty quickly. Yeah, not very organically, it seemed. Yeah. But that'd be really, for me, in my own mind, that's a very nitpicky thing for me, because overall I think it was a great film, and one of the final things I'd say about it is Viggo Mortensen really carries the film, and really handles a lot of the complexity, I think, with very entertainingly. And
well, it's very contradictory, and a lot of things I've seen people say is that he is literally the perfect person for this part, because this guy can look really rugged and rough on the edge, but this guy is like known for being a very emotional actor, and that's kind of the part he's playing here, is this very rough, very, I don't know what they call this style of parenting, but just very, rough kind of guy living out in the woods. But he's also like, the one thing you can't doubt about the movie is this guy, he cares about his children, and he thinks he's giving them the best life, even if he at times is not exactly right about that. But
I'm really impressed that there's just so much going on there that, like I said, the last thing I could care about is a father figure and how he treats his children, really. But a lot really comes through about the character and how he treats the children, and it was really a joy to just kind of watch unfold for me. And I think it's can be a really introspective piece, and kind of a lot of lessons you can take away, a lot of observations you can take away just from watching him and how he handles all these scenes. And I thought the children were actually really good too. We skipped over them in the cast reading, but I actually thought that maybe with some exceptions, like say this very undynamic.
He was really the only one that I even had a little bit of trouble with. Almost every other one
I think
thought was great.
Some of the unappealing nature of that performance or that character is that it's so at odds with the rest of the family. It's just kind of generally unpleasant to see anyone be negative when everyone else is kind of like, feeling good.
Mhm.
Everyone else is vibing, so.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I could have. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
I really
You
enjoyed
guys
it.
want to do star ratings?
I'll start it off. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 4.
I'm gonna go 3 out of 4.
Okay. You sure?
I'm sure,
Okay.
but
Am I really the most negative?
wow,
give it
I
a-
didn't think that coming in.
I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 4.
All right.
I thought you were more negative than I was.
I was leaning positive last night, and
But
then today.
I don't think your guys' hate is a blind hate. I think you had some very well reasoned
Well,
criticism.
okay,
well,
I'm
just
giving
as much
it a-
as I also don't think your like for this movie is ridiculous to me. Like everything you said, those were the way you were feeling during this movie. That's how I felt during my favorite parts of the movie. So
Yeah.
it
Basically, guys, we're just saying we're all great. We all raise valid points.
Okay.
People should pay us to do this.
It's like when Catherine Hahn was telling telling the clearly more intelligent child impressive, and then she made sure to say, all your responses
Yeah.
were impressive.
I'm
I
giving
think
it-
this is like top 10 of the year for me so far. Not in there somewhere in my list.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a 2 out of 4 based on, because I'm sure my review sounded more negative than that. I'm giving it a 2 out of
It
4
didn't
based
really.
on the fact that I saw it 2 hours ago, and I'm assuming the more negative parts will fade and some of the better moments will linger.
I
a
don't know.
little
You sound
longer.
pretty solid on your
We'll see.
criticisms here.
I'm
I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt here.
Let me show you with my hand, which listeners will not
Yeah,
get. I've-
yeah.
So
do
it's-
that.
This is me. Right after I came out of this movie, I was like a roller coaster, a wave. I was going up and down. I was like, where am I going? I like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. And then I just simmered down. I just evened out.
You're
to
just
a nice,
vibing right there in the middle,
a
aren't you?
nice little just wave, just very right in the middle, but leaning positive. And that's my review. So,
Well, you guys want to take a break?
so yeah, if you stuck through that long, just hold on for a moment, and we'll get right into our picks. All right, and we're back with picks of the week. Who wants to start it off? Jody? Yep. All right. I'll start it off with a pick of the week that
It's
I
like the
just.
second or third time we did that.
It's the second time.
Okay.
Because I got it prepared next week as well. So I'm just going to do a really quick pick, and you guys can chime in. I don't know if you've seen these movies, but once again, not this next week, but the week after that. Or actually, no, maybe it's in 3 weeks. We're going to be doing our review on one of the new Leica films. And it's Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yes.
And they've released 3 other films so far. It's been Coraline in 2009, Paranorman in 2012, and then The Box Trolls back in 2014. I had not seen any of these, or maybe I'd seen parts of Coraline, but I finally sat down and watched the first 2 anyway. And so I saw Coraline and Paranorman. Have you guys seen either of these?
I have not.
I've seen Paranorman.
I actually really liked both. I liked Paranorman a little bit more. It just, I don't know, it just really right where I like that sort of blend of comedy and just animation. It just really reminded me of something like Monster House, which I think is a underrated movie that I really like. Goes for some weird kind of, maybe not adult humor, but very teenage humor. And I think the animation's beautiful. It was like the first animated film to use 3D printed models.
Paranorman was.
As their
Okay.
characters, and I thought all that was really interesting. Coraline was, I think, a great adaptation of the book. Really like the children's book as well. Yeah, I'm a big fan of both movies. Still need to see Box Trolls. I'm just getting excited for Kubo and the Two Strings, which we will be having our friend Chase on for.
I talked to him tonight, and he made sure to say that he is an expert. He wanted us to make sure to say that he is an expert on Leica.
Your
He actually-
archive disc was his.
I borrowed
the
Blu-rays from him.
Oh.
Don't say disc. It's Blu-rays.
But
It's funny.
he complained. He was like, I think you guys really oversold me. He's like, I'm not an expert on Leica. I've just seen all of them and know
Are
a
you
little
kidding
bit.
me?
He really likes them, though. He's the one who, if anything, I was afraid he overhyped Paranorman for me, but even with that hype, I still really, really liked it. I'd say almost loved it.
Chase is an expert.
What do you think of Paranorman?
Paranorman,
you're
it,
little...
I'm having trouble with these. I'll reserve judgment until Kubo comes out. But
Okay.
it's almost, you know how I'm kind of concerned with oversaturation of animated films, and it's like
oversaturated. If anything, more animated movies like that need to be made, don't you think?
Well, now this studio's work, only having seen Paranorman, I guess I can't speak to all of them, but there was additional elements to that and what it was trying to do, I think, than just the usual, here's the jokes, right?
There's plenty of really awful animation.
Here's a butt. Here's somebody farting. Here's
Wait, you're saying that's how the humor played
a frying
to you
pan
in the
to
movie?
the face? No, I'm saying this is the generic stuff that we just
and I mean,
get subjected to all year long. And these films, or this studio, it seems like that is not their focus.
no.
Right.
And I think even though there are some
Even
jokes
though
like
there
that
were
that are
jokes like
funny,
that.
and I think they're funny, I'll defend those jokes. But I also think there's a pretty good emotional core that's working in the movie as well. And I think
Yes.
there's a cool concept, because Paranorman, is this idea of the kid being able to see ghosts and things.
My problem is not that a film is a cartoon or that it's animated. My problem is that they just, a lot of times their aspirations seem to get sort of a downgrade, unrightfully so, because they're like, well, it's just a cartoon, right?
Yeah. Oh, I hate that.
And that's what used to be great for me about Pixar movies, is that they played it like this is just a film and it happens to be animated. It's not a cartoon. But it seems like they move away from that with things like Cars and whatever.
Oh yeah.
So
with maybe
those are
Cars.
cartoons. No pun intended.
Okay.
That's literally cartoons.
You guys are sitting here talking
I
about...
just actually now understand how great Cars is. It is a meta joke on us all, actually.
You guys are sitting here talking about fart jokes.
Uh-huh.
And I will say that this is way off topic. It only has to do with fart jokes.
Great.
This has
you
been
got your
the
phone
I
out?
don't think we're actually talking about fart jokes. But
this has been the year of fart jokes.
because of Swiss Army Man?
Swiss Army Man had great fart jokes. The BFG had great fart jokes. Ghostbusters has a good fart joke. This has been a great year for fart jokes.
Year of the fart.
So at the end of the year, we might
2016.
need to do a Bernie that is best fart joke
That
of the
is
year.
an excellent idea.
Okay, I don't know if anything is going to be Daniel Radcliffe, honestly.
You got to see the BFG, man. There's some farting corgis, like the dog.
You want to talk about innovative?
There's like a parade of farting corgis.
My picks-
Farting corgis might top Daniel Radcliffe. Radcliffe?
My pick is over. Anytime my pick leads to fart jokes, I'm done. This is why I don't do picks every week, guys. I get emails all the time where they're like, Jody, why don't you do picks? And I'm like, guys, you don't know what happens when I do a pick. Stuff gets too wild.
Off the rails.
Our only emails are congratulating me about how great my opinions are. Mark, what's your pick?
I've got two picks. I'll just get this out of the way, that one of my more anticipated films of the year turned out to be a total dud. Lights Out is no good. Don't bother. But maybe I did see a trailer for the first time in front of that for Don't Breathe. Maybe that'll be good. But this was too bad. This project had no substance, nothing behind it, other than a really what's the word? I want to say unrealized sense of style here. I mean, it's just family drama and mental institutions and sickness is a bad way to go to flesh out this original concept for a short film. Really generic and poorly executed. And I also saw, my second pick would be Star Trek Beyond. I've been catching up throughout the weeks here on the other two Abrams films of the Star Trek reboot universe, or whatever it is. And this was... the order for me and how I like these films would probably be Into Darkness first, is my most favorite, which is totally backwards, I know. And then I think I like Beyond, and then I think I like the first initial reboot the least.
I think you're literally flipped from what a lot of people think, right? A lot of people like the first one the most. That's at least what I've gathered.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the first is the most beloved. 2 and 3, I'm really not sure where people are going. I honestly just remember thinking 2 and 1 were equals in my eyes. And I've only seen the first half of this one, so
Great thing about Beyond is, again, right up front, they get their CGI monsters out of the way, so we don't have to look at any more of them.
And it's pretty funny
And
too, right?
They are, right, usually we're talking about big CGI monsters, and these big CGI monsters end up being not so big CGI monsters. That's pretty great. Great. And Carl Urban, awesome. Best ever.
Oh, are you serious?
He's
Again?
so good. He's so good.
He seems to be wearing thin for some
No,
people.
I love it. I love
worst part.
I am rolling.
I was not on board with
I
Carl
am
Urban.
rolling.
I kind of like him, and I think the reason I might like him is I have not rewatched any of the movies. I think if I watched more than one of these movies at a time, I'd probably be choking that guy. I'd be nuts. I'd be so angry.
He's
but
so great.
I think
He's so hammy.
I think just
He is.
one. I think just one movie at a time. Don't binge watch these movies just because of Carl Urban. Just put some break in between just because of
I
him.
couldn't.
you know who's
Beyond
wearing-
was enough.
You know who's wearing thin for me is Simon Pegg.
He's not great in these movies.
He helped write this one too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really weird for me because he feels like he's in it too much, and he's the writer, one of the writers.
And
so I'm
I
like,
love Simon Pegg.
That's a conflict of interest there.
That's what I'm saying, Jody. Thanks for picking that up. So I think one of the things that
You patronizing me? That sounded.
no,
It sounded like, thanks for picking that up. I obviously just said that.
no, buddy, you're right here with me. You're right here with me. One of the things that keeps this from being one of my favorite in front of Into Darkness is they obscure Idris Elba way too much. Like the villain was okay, but how can you put like an actor that great into that much makeup where like just not much comes through? And it also was.
All I need's his voice, man.
Some of his physical transformation sort of tells a story. I mean, I get what they were doing, but it also doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They don't explain it too deeply, and not that they need to. It just ended up being a weaker element for me. And I would rather have just seen him play something a little less obscured, like Eric Bana did in the original reboot, where he could still act. Right. A lot of this was, I think he still did an amazing job with all the prosthetics they threw on him. But I would rather just see him he was, again, till the day I die, he is my favorite part about Prometheus. And it's just like maybe the combined 4 minutes he's in that movie, he's just incredible.
Idris Elba?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
So
really good
Even
in
with that in mind, I think it's not even up for debate. I'm not even a big fan of this guy, but I think Cumberbatch is probably the best villain in these three films.
Yes.
So
that. Still haven't seen Into Darkness.
Most people hate it. I don't understand.
I don't think people hate it.
Oh, I think
I think
You need to check yourself.
I think it's been like reevaluated
Jody.
and people don't
Jody.
like it.
Jody,
Okay.
you were
I'm
with
just
me,
saying when it-
and now you're not with me.
I'm saying when it initially came out, that thing like 85 Rotten Tomatoes score. Maybe it's people. I think that's fair. Like people were like, "This is good," and then later we're like, "Okay, maybe that wasn't so great."
Oh, but they're wrong. They were right the first time. It's great. Why'd
All
they?
right.
What led them to self-doubt like that? I don't understand. I don't get it. Anyway, those are my two picks.
All right, my pick is a movie on Netflix that I watched from 2014. It is Black Coal, Thin Ice. It's a Chinese film noir movie.
Chinese
basically.
flick.
It's a Chinese flick pick.
So if you're listening, please go check out Reed's Letterboxd review, because after I finished reading his Letterboxd review, it was written like a poem, and I felt like I should have started snapping after.
Well, you didn't like
like
it.
a-
You didn't give me a like. Though.
No, I liked it.
No, you didn't.
Speaking of sarcasm, it's hard to tell what's going on.
I actually,
around this table anymore.
I did write a short
It's getting a little
letterbox.
late, guys.
I did write a short letterbox review for it, and if you want to check that out, feel free. I'll read the synopsis though, because it's been
What's
a
the title
week
again?
since I've seen it. Black Coal, Thin Ice.
Okay.
The synopsis is: two former cops start investigating the series of murders that tanked their careers when the killings begin again. And it's directed by Yinan Jiao. Yinan Jiao.
That's
I did take Chinese.
That's beautiful.
That's correct.
That was great, and I'm not being sarcastic.
I know.
Why is everything coming off so sarcastic right now?
But no, I did. I really liked the movie. It's not one of my favorites. I was actually anticipating more of a more violent, like almost kung fu type thriller when getting into it. But it's really a more romantic movie about the past and nostalgia and all that stuff, and it's played really well and it's shot beautifully. There's a few scenes that are like two of the main characters lit by these neon lights, and it's at nighttime, and I was just like, oh man, oh yeah, give me more of that, yeah. But but no, it's
I get you. I read you loud and clear.
But,
I felt that way all the way throughout Collateral, right? Didn't you, Jody?
Me too.
That's what I'm talking
Although it's
about.
more of like a yeah.
Okay.
This is so unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta not do that. I'm serious. Like, it's hard to make me uncomfortable. That made me uncomfortable. And I can, like, sit through, like, some messed up movies. But yeah, Collateral, great.
Well, I was
That's
talking
all I'm
about.
saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna start moaning into the mic.
Yeah. But Black
No,
Coal
it's not like, it's more like a yeah, right?
Yeah, it's not a moaning. It's a yeah. Black Coal Thin Ice is on Netflix. You should check it out. It's a pretty good one. That's all I got. That's my pick.
All right, now that's all for our picks of the week. Would you guys be cool if we did something that we've never done on the show before?
Absolutely. Whatever it is, I'm
I can't say no after you did that.
So it's my sister's 15th birthday in like 10 minutes.
Oh, cool.
And she actually listens to the show. What we're going to do is we're going to wish my sister a happy 15th birthday. Destiny, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Destiny.
Happy birthday, Destiny.
All right, and Reed's actually got a movie recommendation here for you.
It's a bit of a weird one. It's something I watched kind of recently. It is Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's The Red Shoes. I don't know. You probably haven't seen it, I'm assuming.
I have not seen it. I want to.
Okay, I was talking to Destiny.
Oh. Well, I'm just assuming I'm going to watch it with her, so.
But yeah, you should check that out. I think it's a pretty amazing film.
All right, yeah.
There you go. A personal recommendation from your hero, Reed.
Your hero.
Right?
Happy birthday. All right, so now let's just close this show up, guys. Yeah, make sure you check out the Twitter, Burn After Watching, Facebook, website, burnafterwatching.com. Email us at burnafterwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. All right, and on next week's show, we're going to be doing another superhero movie. It's been a while, so I guess it's about time we come back and do another one. Going to be doing Suicide Squad.
It's not been long enough.
This one will be very interesting, I think.
Good point.
This one, we might end up all hating it, honestly, so it could be a fun
we could end
show.
up all loving it.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
I go in with an open mind, Jody.
This might be like a number 10 or number 9 for top of 2016. You never know.
All right, so yeah.
You never know. Could be as good or better than Jurassic World. You don't know.
They should put that on the poster. Could be as good or better than Jurassic World.
All right, and it looks like the week after that, we're probably going to be doing the Seth Rogen Sausage Party animated comedy,
Oh, boy.
which I think you guys are, I'm loving it.
I'm
gonna love it.
squirming.
I think I'm going to really like it. And also, the week after that, like I said earlier, we're going to be doing Kubo and the Two Strings. So, yeah, make sure you look forward to all those shows. Maybe try to check out the movies before the show comes
Two
out.
animated movies in a row?
I don't know. It could be fun. They're going to be very different, don't you think?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Very
they
different.
will be very different.
What do you guys... I'm not a betting man, but over-under on the runtime for Sausage Party?
That puppy better be 78 minutes at the most.
Jody?
That thing's going to be about 105 minutes.
No.
I'm going 86.
78 max.
I'm not saying what it should be. I'm saying what it might.
I'm saying
possibly.
what's allowed.
89 minutes.
Beautiful.
That was pretty close.
Not short enough.
Oh, I agree.
They could have cut a couple of them sausages out of that party.
Just cut off a few links.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening to the show. See ya.
See? Bye.
All right. So I'm speaking.
Your test was fake, Mark.
This is Jody talking into the mic.
This is Reed talking into the mic.
This is the podcast about testing for the podcast.
Oh!
Test.
Whoa.